Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, wherever all you lovely people are at in the world. Welcome back to another live stream. In today's live stream, we're going to be looking at two more of my APA 8-Ball League matches, and I actually think that my last live stream was reviewing my league matches, and it was. So I haven't done straight pool since the last live stream, so that definitely needs to come in order here soon. I did, however, publish a new video. It's a very simple one rail kicking system that I learned from Tony Robles when he was here helping me with my straight pool game. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out that video. And as always, be sure to please give this stream a thumbs up. It really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm, so that way hopefully more people can discover the live stream while the live stream is going on. And then, of course, maybe people can find this live stream after we're done with it. Let's see, what else do we got going on? In case you haven't noticed, or if you're new to my stream here, I have my very first official pool-related sponsor. So if you look at the pinned comment in the live chat, the apparel company Onboard Sportswear, that is the company that makes the jerseys for the Mosconi Cup. They have graciously offered me a sponsorship, and this is the jersey that I had made for me. What you're looking at is the back of the jersey. As you can see, black and red are my favorite colors. So on the back is my logo, along with the Onboard Sportswear logo. And then on the front, you can see that I have this is the Onboard Sportswear on the left pec and on the right pec and the right sleeve. But then on the left pec and the left sleeve is my logo. And why is my logo on the left sleeve since I'm a right-handed player? Well, since I'm a right-handed player, my bridge arm is my left. So whenever I stick my left arm out, that's why you get to see my logo there. This is currently not publicly available. I'm hoping to hear that it's going to be publicly available this month. At least that was the last news that I was given. I think Onboard is trying to launch a US only website because they are a UK company. And as soon as they launch their US website, then my design, along with like the Queued Up Networks design and a bunch of other sponsored player designs, will be publicly available for people to purchase. But in the meantime, you can still use my discount code LittleChris10 on their website that you can find in the pinned comment to still get 10% off of your purchase. All right, let's see here. How's everybody doing? It's just, I always feel strange when I don't have a giveaway going on or some type of special announcement or anything. So it's like I don't know what to do at the very beginning of the streams anymore other than to just do some, general chatting or whatever. Now, I do see a bunch of familiar faces in the live chat. Rack Accoutrements, how's it going? Loping CSF. Eros, you actually weren't first on this one, but good try anyway. G Money Gaming, Alfredo Flores, you're saying hi from Carrizo Spring, Texas. I have a fellow Texan here in the live chat. That's awesome. Hector Montalvo, John B, how's it going? Shorty Dancer, Russian Crush Gaming, I haven't seen you in a while, Ron. How's it going? What up, Craig? And we also have Anthony Wisenet so far. I'm sure we'll start seeing more and more people as we go along. If there are any new people in the live chat that have never seen my live streams before, what I'm going to do here is I have two of my APA 8-Ball League matches that I'm going to review for y'all. I'm going to try to provide some play-by-play commentary as to what I was thinking about when I'm taking particular shots, and then try to maybe guess what I think my opponent might be trying to do. And anytime there's any types of mistakes, whether it's a mistake by my opponent or a mistake done by me, then we can try to do some sort of analysis as to what I could have done better, so that way I can hopefully improve my game. And then, of course, if there are any viewers out there that either suffer the same issues that my opponent does or the same issues that I suffer from in these matches, then hopefully whatever we can try to come up with in a retrospective fashion can also benefit you as well. So hopefully everybody can learn from this stuff as well as myself. And then, of course, I get to chat with everybody, which is always fun. Alok Sathay, I hope I said that correctly. Hello from Canada. Thanks so much for being here. Mr. Pete B, hello from Massachusetts. This is awesome. I love seeing everybody from all over the world, especially anybody that takes the time out of their day to come and watch my live stream. So this is cool. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think I really have anything else to really mention, I think. So why don't we go ahead and just get started with the first match. Let me switch on over to this, and I finally fixed the camera in this area here, because I don't know if anybody remembers, I usually have to reset my camera or reset the resolution of my camera in this area here whenever I switch to it. Now I don't have to do that anymore, which is good. One less thing to worry about. So what you see here is, as I said in the title, both of these matches I'm going to be playing up against a skill level 7. This person here is someone new. For those that don't remember, I'm also playing APA on Mondays now, as well as Wednesdays. And this is an opponent that I have on, or that I had on a Monday. And then my next match is going to be a Wednesday match. And so this is someone new. And I always actually enjoy playing someone new, because I wonder how many of y'all can relate to this, to where if you've ever played in tournaments and or leagues, you know, you start to eventually get very comfortable with your opponents, especially if they're regular opponents, right? You kind of have an idea of if it's an opponent that you're quote unquote more than likely going to lose to, you don't feel so nervous, you try your best. And if it's an opponent that you more than likely are going to beat, then you still just play normally. But anytime you face someone new, does anybody have that like nervousness feeling, like you don't know what to expect? If that makes sense, because that's basically what it feels like for me. Anytime I play someone new for the very first time, and it doesn't matter what their skill level is, because I basically want to really see what their skill level is, of course, while I'm playing, so I can have some sort of an assumption that since this opponent is a skill level 7, will he actually be playing at quote unquote like a skill level 7, a 7 that's like myself, a 7 that's a little bit better, or a 7 that's just slightly below, or what. And it doesn't matter what their skill level is, it's just that there's just that bit of nervousness that I have, and then once I start to really assess their skill level, then my nerves start to calm down, and then I just start to play normally. I don't know if anybody ever experiences that, but that's something that I typically experience whenever I play someone new. Usually. Now, what I can say, though, because my opponent did want me to mention this, and I want to make sure I describe this accurately. His vision, I don't know if there's a conditional name for this, so someone can maybe help me out. What you're going to see sometimes is what he described to me is that when he's physically at the table looking at the balls, looking at the cue ball, or looking at the shot, his vision is a little blurred. And I don't want to say blurred to the point of blindness, just that it's not a clear picture. But when he steps back and observes the table, observes the shot from a farther distance, then he's able to see everything clearly. So what I remember him describing to me is that whenever he's looking to figure out what he's going to do, he always does it quote unquote like a little bit further away from the table, but then he has to make sure that he steps perfectly in line with his cue ball and his shot, because once he does that, everything kind of gets just a little bit blurry. And he has to, if he has to make some sort of an adjustment, he either tries to do it while he's down on the shot, or he just gets back up and takes a step back away from the table so he can be further away from the table and try to reassess everything again and then get back down on the shot. I don't know if that's like nearsighted or basically farsightedness or whatever, but I remember He basically wanted me to say that I was playing a blind man in this shot, even though he's not actually blind. Since I mean he's playing pool, quote unquote. If we're saying that someone's blind, that means they can't see, or they can't. What's the right way? Because I think sometimes people can say that they're legally blind if their vision is like really blurred, but they're able to still make out some sort of shapes. But nonetheless, what I do remember though is this guy plays really good. And he also plays smart. You're going to see some areas where that happens to come into play as well. All right, so what else here? I think that's it. This is going to be a race to 5 since we're both skill level 7s. Let's see who's going to break first with the lag. As you can see, both of our lags are terrible. It's just mine's worse. So he's actually going to break first. All right, so it looks like he's going to be doing a second ball break here, so we're going to see a lot of movement out of the 8 ball, or we should see a lot of movement out of the 8 ball. Look at that 8 ball moving. Okay, and it looks like he made a ball on the break. I don't see the 4 ball, so it looks like he is solids, and I'm going to be stripes. Now, solids actually looks pretty darn good. I don't really think there's an issue. So we can already see here, look at my opponent. He's looking around. You know, he doesn't just get down immediately and starts firing at shots. But it looks like he's going to settle on the 1 ball. And it looks like he might have hit the 1 ball on the wrong side. So I get to come to the table. I'm stripes. And here's what I always like to do as soon as I can get to where I can see the entire table. Remember that it doesn't matter what your skill level is. In my opinion, every time you come to the table, you should be trying to analyze the entire table. Now, for lower skill level players, this doesn't happen so often. I think typically I see lower skill level players, they will just come to the table and just shoot at an obvious shot. And it's not like there's anything wrong with that. I just think that in the long run, that eventually leads to some sort of problems because you're not really, quote unquote, identifying what could possibly be the best shot that leads to, quote unquote, the best route that possibly allows you to be able to run the table. Right, so when I come to the table here, I have to be able to see where all of my stripes are. So I have the 13 ball here, the 14 and 11, 15 ball, the 10 ball, and the 9 and the 12. So I've got a couple of issues on the table, particularly this area right here. The 9 ball at least goes into this corner pocket, and then I'm not entirely sure what I can do with the 12 ball yet. So the 12 ball is kind of an issue for me as well, especially with this 1 ball being in the way. And so when you're playing 8 ball, you certainly want to try to solve your problems as quickly as possible, unless you can say to yourself, I don't know how to solve them, and I don't think I have the skill set to solve them. So therefore, if that is the case, you more than likely should not just be pocketing balls for the sake of pocketing balls, because then you're removing chances from being able to pocket a ball and break out your trouble spot at the same time. Now, at lower skill levels, that's usually an okay strategy to have because you're pretty much going to be doing the same thing where you're just going to be pocketing balls just to be pocketing balls. But then as you move along in this game, you start to realize that you're wasting a turn to open up a cluster because that's all that you have and giving the table back to your opponent. That's not typically something that you want to do. So hopefully what you can see here, or what I'm going to try to keep analyzing every time I come to the table, or even when my opponent comes to the table, how I try to deal with trouble spots. And since I've identified this as my first trouble spot, I can already see that there's a way to possibly try to solve it. Now, just because I find a way to solve it doesn't mean I'm going to solve it, because I still have to execute correctly. That's no different than being able to see that you can make a ball, but you miss, right? So it's the same thing. Now, in this case here, what I see is I can either try to pocket this ball just as a shot, but this shot doesn't allow me to solve the problem here. So this is not an option for me. I obviously can't shoot these guys, and it looks like I can shoot these guys, but I can't do anything with them. I don't think the 15 ball passes by the 6 ball. Do I want to waste a turn and shoot straight into the 14 ball, bank it off the side rail like this, and hide the cue ball right here? That's a possibility. I could certainly do that. But what I end up seeing is the 10 ball. I can play the 10 ball into the top left corner pocket, and with a bit of top left spin, I expect the cue ball to come to the short rail and then come over here and break this apart. Now here's the kicker of all this. Just because if I successfully break this apart, am I going to have a shot? I mean, there's certainly a possibility that I can freeze right up next to the 11 ball and probably won't be able to shoot at anything. But remember our 9 ball or my 9 ball? So just in case something goes wrong here, if I do get a hit, but I can't manage to have a shot at the 11 ball, the 14 ball, or the 15 ball, I should hopefully have a shot at the 9 ball. So that's why it's always good to have your soldiers, what's referred to as having enough soldiers on the table to serve as insurance shots, just in case whatever you're trying to do to solve a problem doesn't get solved. So I hope that makes sense. So that's what you're going to see here on this first shot. You see that? Do you see where the cue ball naturally wanted to go and where I forced it to go? So actually, this is probably not correct. It's probably more like this much spin. I mean, it's going off to the right, and I spun it back to the left. And you see what happened? I kind of get stuck on my 11 ball, but that's why having my 9 ball here is good. Now, just because I got stuck on the ball, you still see me come over here and look to see what does my 15 ball look like. All right, so this is always good. Now here it looks like I was looking to see if the 12 ball will go through the 5 and the 2 to get here into the side pocket, and I don't think it does. Now, what's usually funny about me reviewing these matches is sometimes I don't remember everything that I do. So let's see what I do here. And I'm guessing my 12 ball does go in the side, or am I shooting the 11? What the heck am I doing? All right, so the 10 ball is gone. I just shot the 9. I guess I'm shooting the 11 in the side. And I'm probably going to clip my 15 ball when I do that. Kind of like that. You can see I get automatic position for the 14 ball, which more than likely means I'm going to try to get here for the 13 next. And see there, I'm checking to see if the 15 ball can go into this corner pocket, even though I know that this is going to be my next shot. I'm trying to make sure I know what all of my options are going to be, especially after the next shot. And actually, why am I shooting this now? Okay, that was the 13 ball. Oh, that must mean that the 12 ball goes. There's enough space past the 5. And so now... this is always great about being able to remember exactly what I did. Why didn't I shoot this ball? Well, look where the 8 ball's at. All right, so when you think about the rest of the pattern here, and it also depends on what my cue ball execution is going to be like. Am I going to get the positions that I want on the next planned ball, or am I going to have to come up with some sort of backup plan? But ideally, you would think that this is probably going to be the last ball that I'm going to shoot at. So if I am going to shoot the 12 ball next, I would probably want to think that I'm going to shoot the either the 15 next, but I have to think, how in the world am I going to get to the 15 and avoid the 5 and the 7? But just like I do in straight pool, when I see that all of my problems are solved, there's no more trouble spots on the table, I have to basically come up with some sort of pattern that's going to allow me to be able to run the table, provided, of course, that my cue ball control is where it's supposed to be. And so typically, the way you would want to do that is first identify where the 8 ball is at, and then identify the ball that's going to get you position on the 8 ball. It should be this guy, though it might end up being this guy. It's certainly not going to be this guy. What ends up happening is when you start realizing what the key ball that's going to be that allows you to get to the 8 ball, then you start building your pattern backward. What ball is going to get you to the key ball? What ball is going to get you to that? So on and so on and so on. And when I look at this, what I possibly see is if this 15 ball does go, if it passes the 7 and the 6, because of the position that I have on the 12, I have to think I'm going to try to get position on this 14 ball next. And if I guessed correctly, I think what's going to happen here is I'm going to shoot the 12 into this pocket here and then push the cue ball to this rail and come out somewhere over here. Now, ideally, if I do land right here, that's going to be perfect because then I don't have to shoot the 14. I can shoot this and then shoot this and then end. That at least would be ideal. But I'm starting to not remember exactly what I did, so let's see what happens. And I'm missing something here. My 11 ball's gone, so click that away. Let's see here. Yeah, so the 12 ball goes. I'm pretty sure I'm pushing this over to the short rail. I'm probably putting left spin on it. Oh, so I did risk getting position on the 15 ball. So now, how do I get to the 14 ball? We should see that if I shoot this ball in, my cue ball is going to come down table. Actually, it can run into the 8 ball if I don't try to control the ball. I would have to think I have top spin on this ball. Probably a twist of right spin if this does what I think it's supposed to do, which is to go into the side pocket and push above or on this side of the 8 ball and come back out for the 14. Or do I shoot the 15 down here and stun my cue ball over here? I think that's what I ended up trying to do. The 15 and the 14 should be going into the same pocket. Unless, of course, I miss. All right, so enough of that. Let's see what my opponent does. So when you think about it, this is what I like to do from time to time. What patterns does everybody see? Right, because my opponent should basically be doing the same thing. What ball does he want to play the 8 ball in? Well, he certainly can't play it in this pocket, or it's not ideal to play it into this pocket because I'm blocking it. And with where all the balls are at, you would think he's probably going to either get positioned down here or maybe position over to this side pocket. Maybe. It all depends on the pattern, right? What patterns does everybody see here when it comes to solids? I'm trying to look real quick. I can't really tell, but I can't tell if the cue ball sees the 1 ball or not. I don't know if the 7 ball is in way, and it looks like it is. And then, of course, I can't tell if the 5 ball passes by the 2 ball to go into the side pocket here. I'm going to say that it does. I'm going to say that it does, because then a pattern that I see here is play the 6 into the corner. You could probably play a stop shot. That allows you to get to the 5 ball to go into the side. Let's go ahead and just roll forward to get to the 3. Roll forward and come off the rail to get to the 2. And then from the 2, I guess it just depends on how you want to play from the 1 to the 7 or from the 7 to the 1. I would think the 7 ball would have to be the key ball to get to the 8. So if I played this position on the 2, I would probably play the 2 ball down here, draw the cue ball back for position on the 1 to go here, get position on the 7 to go here, and then play the 8 here. That's at least one small pattern that I can see. The movement of the cue ball is somewhat minimized. Of course, there's hundreds of other patterns I think that you can possibly do here, but this is kind of the tricky part, I think, between the 3 and the 2 here. You obviously would want to be able to shoot the 3 first, so that way you have options to deal with the 2 ball. Let's see here. Persistent Wolf Billiard says the 2 is his key ball for the 8. So if the 2 is the key ball for the 8, that makes me believe that you're wanting to shoot the 2 ball down here, and which means your 3 ball has to be last. So that way you can hopefully follow your cue ball down here and play the 8 like this, regardless of whatever the rest of the pattern is that's going to be here. That's the only way I see the 2 ball being the key ball. Let's see. Hector Montalvo, you're saying 2, 5. Well, this is the 2 ball here. Three, 7, 1, 8. I'm not sure what we're talking about on that one, Hector. Well, let's see what my opponent does. And usually in cases like this is pretty much what you would want to do when you come to the table, right? You have no issues on the table. So like, normally you hear the notion of think 3 balls ahead, which you clearly can do. But in cases like this, if your skill level is like of the 6 or the 7 caliber, this is probably the way that you'd want to try to figure this out. So he plays the 6. It looks like he has position on the 5. Okay, the 5 did go. Now, did he want to run into the 3 ball? With the way that he shot it, and he actually threaded the needle between the 2 and the 3. So I was at least correct on the first 2 shots, but now obviously he's going to shoot the 1 ball next. He's going to go from the 1 to the 3 then. That's what he's trying. I don't know if he got it. So if I'm my opponent and I don't have a shot here, I hit the 3 ball and tuck the cue ball behind the 2. All right, looks like just a normal stun shot off the 3 and tuck the cue ball right here behind the 2 so that way I can't see my stripes. It looks like he's going to cut the 2. Oh, what a shot! Nicely done there. We got position on the 7. So how do we go from the 7 to the 3, though? So as you can see, there's more than one way to run the pattern, but we typically want to try to look for the quote-unquote easier pattern, right? You can see he's got a lot of movement on his cue ball, and it's moving correctly so far, or he's doing a good job keeping his cue ball movement in check. Nice draw shot on the 7. Probably could have hit that just a tad bit harder, so that way he doesn't have this back cut shot on the 3 ball. But this is kind of good. If he can do pretty much the same thing and just stun his cue ball over here, somewhere right here, that way he can shoot the 8 into this corner. I'm pretty sure that's what he's thinking about. At least that's what I would be thinking about. See, he's got a high ball. He's just gonna roll this ball in. No, he tries to 3-rail it. And he gets it. Got kind of a difficult back cut shot on the 8 ball. Certainly wants to make sure that he's avoiding the scratch. He's a little close to the rail, so he automatically has a little bit above center, which could cause the cue ball to just fall right into the side pocket if he's not careful. If you look at the trajectory of where the cue ball naturally wants to go. Oh, you see what I mean? Oh, but he overcuts the ball. Now look at that. Look at this overcut. Had he made the ball, I think he would have scratched. His cue ball hits right here when he overcuts the ball. So if he actually hits the ball correctly and the 8 ball falls, that means it's a thicker hit. And with it being a thicker hit, that means the cue ball comes up a little bit more and possibly would have scratched. But with that overcut, I get to come back to the table, and I didn't even realize that my opponent was just shooting all of his balls off. I don't know if I'm starting to like this feature that I'm trying to add, which is to show which balls are still on the table or that are not on the table. So here with this shot, I decided to take the combination because I'm not worried about if the 14 ball is going to land where like this to where because I knew my cue ball is coming over here. All right, so playing the combo was just fine to me knowing that I was going to have a shot on the 14 ball. This one here is probably done with some top right spin so that way I can get position on the 8 ball here to go into this corner pocket. And in case anybody's wondering what this pocket marker is, this little guy. It's my little minion that lets everybody know where I plan on pocketing the 8 ball. And I take the first rack down. So really now when we look at this table here, oh, and I almost forgot to mention the thumbnail you see from my last 8 ball match where I was talking about the pop break. Well, I'm still trying to do the pop break. And I'm trying to perfect it, if you will. But you're going to see I don't do quite a good job on both of these matches here. Sometimes I'm still able to get it done correctly, but sometimes I'm just a little off. Like that, for example. All right, I pop the ball into the air, but the cue ball just pops right over into the side pocket. Now, I saw some balls drop, though. Let's see here. I don't see the 15 ball anymore, so before we do this, I thought I saw a solid drop. My opponent's going to have ball in hand in the kitchen. And as you can see, with the way that I break, though, I'd get a really decent spread off of the break, but I certainly need to make sure that I control my cue ball and not scratch. As you can see, my opponent's taking his time. He's trying to figure out what set he wants to choose. I'm still trying to figure out what balls are on the table, or did I just make a stripe? Looks like I did just make a stripe. Yep. Okay, I only made the 15 ball on the break. Little pink CSF, I was just a tiny bit off. I think I was a lot off if my cue ball flies off to the right like that. Normally, I would expect the cue ball to just pop back and then hopefully halt right near the middle of the table. That's at least what I'm expecting. So anytime, if anybody's wondering about your breaks, right, you would, unless you're cut breaking, if you're trying to do a square hit, you'll know if you're aiming straight by watching your cue ball. If you're trying to do a straight hit, it doesn't matter what angle you're coming from. Right? If you're breaking on what would be your left side of the table, but the cue ball goes right from the rack, then you didn't hit the head ball square. You hit it slightly on the right side. And if it goes off to the left, then you hit it slightly off to the left. Usually I'm trying to hit, or with the pop break, I'm trying to hit it as square as I possibly can, pop it back towards the middle of the table, then hopefully it halts. All right, so my opponent likes stripes, and you see, unfortunately, he ties up his 9 ball. So this is what I was talking about to where like you need to figure out what you're going to do. Because if he doesn't have a plan on how to get that 9 ball loose, then doing this here doesn't really serve him a good purpose. It would appear that the only ball that can help the 9 ball would be this ball here, especially with the position that he just got on this 10 ball. All right, so if anything, I would have tried to prioritize getting position on this ball to cut it into this side pocket and then drive the cue ball into the cluster here to try to open up my 9 ball. Draws off the 10. Doesn't really get the position that he wants. So the 11 ball's gone as well. So like if I'm watching my opponent do this stuff, this is where I would start to think that is his, you know, I have a high probability of coming back to the table because how does he plan on solving this? Right? Even if he makes the 13 ball, because that looks like all that he has left, he has to possibly bank it. I can't tell if he can cut it in. How's he going to get position on this ball in order to make it and then break up this ball at the same time? Maybe he can try to make this ball and break out the 9 at the same time and have this as a backup. Kind of like that. See? But now I have to do the same exact thing. Look at my 3 ball. Now, maybe I can, get the cue ball to land right here to possibly shoot it in by itself. All right, but it looks like I'm going to start with the 6. I think I'm just going to stop right there for the 4 ball. Pretty much. And why do you think that is? Because I'm going to try to deal with this. I think this is with a little bit of draw and some left spin. Watch the cue ball come over here and break this up, and I have the 7 ball and the 5 ball as backup shots. See? And just gently open them up. And see? I get hooked. I can't do anything with the 3 ball, but that's why my 5 ball is my backup shot. So now what am I doing here? Is this top right spin as I come 2 rails out to get position on the 3? Pretty much. And then I remember this shot here. I goofed here. Look where I'm cueing on the cue ball. And what I wanted to happen was to draw off the 3, run into the 9 on this side, and my cue ball is supposed to come right here. But what happens? I decelerated my stroke. I don't have the draw that I wanted on the cue ball, so therefore the cue ball hits on the other side of the 9 ball, and I get hooked. So always make sure that you commit to your shot and make sure that you hit the shot as you intend to hit it. Me, I accidentally slowed my stroke down at the last second, didn't pull it off the way I wanted. Now, how many of y'all have seen my +2 rail kicking video? Because that's exactly what I'm doing here to try to kick in the 2 ball. Top right spin on the cue ball, try to go 2 rails around, thread between the 13 and the 8 ball to hopefully hit my 2. But I missed the 2, barely clipped the 7, and avoided the scratch. So therefore, I don't foul. And cue ball control, sometimes you are absolutely right. All the 14 or the straight pull, 14-1 straight pull games that I've been playing in my garage have been paying off with me reading the table and identifying how to break up a cluster, especially with how to break up a cluster and have insurance shots at the same time, just in case I don't develop a shot out of breaking up the cluster. Very, very important. Now, what can my opponent possibly do here? What is he looking at with the... Is that the 12 ball he's measuring up? Why would he measure up the 12 ball from here? Oh, he's looking to try to carom the 13 ball off the 12. Anybody see any danger with that? Because if he does do that, where does he expect the 12 ball to end up? Right? If he caroms this 13 ball like this, the 12 ball is certainly going to go over here, so he definitely wants it to hit and come off and not be anywhere around my solids. Kind of like that. But had he made it, look where his cue ball's at. Not a whole lot that we can do here. But look, another small... kind of a trouble spot. I mean, if I can get my cue ball right here, then maybe I can just shoot the 1 over here. But I think I try to break this up by using some top right spin to pocket the 2 ball and try to break that up. But I failed at doing that. So now, because of the angle that I have on the 7 ball, I have to try to break this up again. I can't just draw back here and get position. If I was at least flat on the ball, I possibly could. So I think this is done with bottom right spin, and I kind of get the breakout that I want. And this is actually a good shot because really all I should have to do is just stun my cue ball off this way and get it to come out for position on the 8, so that way I don't have to worry about scratching. That's all I had to do. Right? I don't even think I need side spin on this one. But it doesn't matter if I miss. All right, I'm human after all. Cut me some slack. I kind of got position on the 8-ball head. I'd made it. I like the idea of going for this ball here. I would just shoot this ball in, let it roll forward to get position on the 9. Stop shot for the 13, 8-ball to go into this pocket here. Very little cue ball movement. How many of y'all would shoot the 9 or the 13 first? I'm starting with the 12 ball. I would just roll the 12 ball in. Cue ball should roll right about here. Stop shot on the 9, stop shot on the 13. Actually, dribble forward a little bit, stun off the 13 to get closer to the 8, and then just 8 in the corner. Oh, I guess he had a stun angle. But he does start with that ball. 9 ball should go into the corner pocket. A little bit of stun left, if anything, to come back towards the middle of the table for the 13. He looks a little flat on this shot, so maybe just draw back a little bit for position on the 8. Or a little bit of a stop shot. How many of y'all would try to get closer? Or would y'all just do the stop shot? And with my mistake on the 1 ball, my opponent takes that rack down. 1-1. Okay, we're still seeing the 2nd ball break from my opponent. Ryan Harmsman, yes, my opponent is a skill level 7. There's that 8-ball movement. Looks like I saw 2 solids drop this time. I think I saw the 4 and the 6 go. Now, how many of y'all would actually try to run this out? All right, this looks difficult. Look at the 5 ball and look at the 7 ball. If I wanted to break out the 7, I would probably shoot the 1 ball now and try to stun into this cluster, which means the 7 ball is going to go up here, which doesn't serve a purpose, right? Because look at all my stripes guarding everything. You'd have to hit this so hard just to get the 7 ball to hit this rail and come back out into the open, right? But what are the odds of that happening correctly? Is that what he's going to try? Yeah, see what I mean? That's what he tried. But even if he would have done that, I don't think that would have served a purpose. So when I go back and look at this scenario here, or look at this situation, I feel more inclined to take the 5 ball and just pocket this stripe and block the pocket. And even at the same time, if I wanted to, I could roll into the 7 and just try to push the 7 above the 14. What do y'all think of that option? Because I don't think trying to go for the run out here is a good option. It's certainly a possible option, but I got to think about the percentages. Like, how good do I have to hit this 1 ball, to hit this 15, to hit this 7, for the 7 to come off the rail, and to come out into the open, and for me to have a shot? Because at least if I hit the 15 flat, maybe my cue ball stops here. Maybe I have a shot at the 2 ball. But then I got to hope that my 7 ball will bounce out into the open. That's a lot of wishful thinking. I don't know. I like, even right now, well, I don't know. Maybe you could play the 3 ball. No, it still doesn't matter, right? If you play the 3 ball into the corner, get the cue ball to come off the side rail and run into this, what happens? The 7 ball gets pushed over here, making this a worse mess than it is. All right, so things are a little bit difficult in this corner here for solids, more than anything. So how would you attempt to solve this if you're solids? I currently don't see a way to solve it. Or let me rephrase, I don't think I would risk trying to solve it. I'm sure there's possibly a way to solve it. See what I mean? He goes for it. But if he does it, like, what's the best we can expect to happen? Because now that he's moved my stripe, I have no issue on the table. I just have to make sure that I execute a good cue ball control. So let's see, what do I do here? Like I said, every time I come to the table, I start looking Where are all my stripes? What kind of pattern am I going to start building? Am I going to try to run the table? I think in this scenario, I think the answer is yes. So it looks like I'm going to start with a combination, 10 into the 12. All right, so the 12 ball's gone. That was just done with a rolling cue ball, a little bit of a above center hit. This one looks to be like a rolling cue ball with some left spin. That allows me to get position on the 14 or the 15 ball. You can see I have plenty of options, but there's no reason for me to shoot the 11 because then my cue ball hits the rail and comes down here towards the 5. So I definitely have to be shooting the 14 or the 15. And if I'm shooting the 15, am I going to try to run into the 7? No, instead I run into the 14 ball. But why did I tap my stick? Usually when I see myself do that, I didn't do exactly what I wanted to do. So what am I trying to do? Look at that again. What am I trying to do? I'm starting to think maybe I put too much right spin on the cue ball. When I look at this, I'm thinking that I wanted my cue ball to come right here. I think that's what makes me not be satisfied with this shot. I can't see any other reason why I would be quote unquote upset for running into my ball. I don't think there was any reason, so I probably just had more spin than I needed, and so now I'm going to come up with a completely different route. So it looks like I'm shooting the 13 ball, top spin, which means I'm going to get position on the 9. Cue ball's going to roll over to the side rail. That definitely had to have some, that would be left spin. Fortunate to bump into the 3 ball and get position on the 9. And so now I want to get position on the 14 ball because we can see the cue ball naturally wants to go this way. So I'm just going to help it. Make sure that I don't get hooked behind the 8 ball. So a little bit of stun right spin. This is probably a stop shot. Perfect stop shot. And then what do I do here? Do I run into the 5 so that I can shoot the 8 down here? Or do I go past the 5? I got bottom spin on the ball. What am I doing? What the heck was I doing? This is luck. This is me getting lucky. I certainly don't think I would want to run into the 7 ball. What am I trying to do? You know what? I have to think, and I obviously can't tell with how close the ball is to the rail here, but I have to think that because of how the cue ball acted, I've got bottom right spin on the cue ball. And that means I'm thinking what I thought I had was a full enough hit to do this. And then play the 8 in the side pocket. That's probably what I was thinking, but totally wrong. Totally. This is why I like looking at my stuff in retrospect. Like, is this the correct shot? Or, was I trying to come this way? I doubt it. I would think trying to come in between the 5 and the 7 wouldn't be correct. So I would have to think that I'm trying to draw out of the corner here and 2 rail over to the 8 to possibly go into the side pocket. The fact that I ran into the 7 ball, I had to have been fortunate to do that. But the more I think about this, I probably should have just done this with the cue ball. That's probably the better shot to take. Unless this 11 ball is further off the rail than what it appears to be, and I'm a little flat. I have a flat angle on the 11. I'm not entirely sure. Because I can tell you this. That right there is not intentional. You can even see like I'm kind of just like, what just happened? I'm fortunate to have a shot for the 8 ball here in the corner. So definitely got a little lucky there on that last shot. Oh, that was a rolling cue ball. That was not a stun shot. Okay, so I'm able to take that one down. Ooh, Robin Lucen. I hope I said that correctly. Good morning from China. Wow, what time is it over there? Since you said it's morning. I'm not too familiar with all the different time zones around the world. Okay, so what's supposed to be happening here with the pop break, since I didn't explain it on my last break here, do you see how the tip of my cue is all the way down here? This is a trick that I learned. This is a trick that I learned from Tony, and I eventually need to make a video on this as well, just like I made my the one rail kicking system that I learned from Tony. I'm aiming at the very, very, very bottom of the cue ball, the part of the ball that's touching the table. Why? Because that lets me know that I'm going to be hitting the absolute center of the cue ball, just the very bottom center, right? Because to truly know that you're going to be striking the very center of the cue ball, there's only one location that can visually allow you to see that you're hitting the center of the cue ball, is the very, very bottom where the ball rests on the table. You could try to put the tip of your cue here, right? There's stroke tests that you basically do by shooting the ball straight into the rail and see if it comes back and hits your tip. But what happens when you try to do this? Sometimes you hit slightly to the left or slightly to the right, and you know that because your cue ball veers off to one side or the other. But when I'm doing the pop break, I start with the tip of my cue all the way down here at the bottom. Then I try to see if the tip of my cue is pointing at the very, very bottom of the 1 ball. And if it is, or if I perceive to see that it is, then that should tell me that I'm going to get a square hit between the cue ball and the 1 ball. Now, on my last break, you saw how the cue ball popped into the air and went off to my right and scratched in the right side pocket. So that should clearly tell me that what I thought I saw was correct was actually incorrect. So every time something like that happens, I have to try to make sure that my perception of whatever it is I'm aiming at is slightly different than before, because I don't want to see the same exact picture that I saw last time and expect a different result, right? That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I want to try to see something different with how I'm lining up the tip of my cue to the bottom of the cue ball and then the tip of my cue to the bottom of the head ball. Then you're going to see me raise up my cue. Now, you can't really see me raise up my cue from this angle. I had side camera angles on my last live stream that allowed you to see it a little bit better. But then when I actually hit the cue ball, I drop my elbow on my final stroke that actually puts the tip of my cue somewhere right around here. This is kind of like trying to mimic what Shane Van Boning does with his 10-ball break and try to follow all the way through. But I still want to have a slight downward hit on the cue ball, because any downward hit on the cue ball causes the cue ball to hop into the air. And basically what happens is the cue ball kind of skips its way over to the rack, and if it contacts the rack when it's off the table, that's what causes the cue ball to pop into the air. And if everything's done correctly, the weight of the rack will still push the cue ball back, and then hopefully the cue ball kind of just stops right in the middle of the table, provided that it doesn't have any top spin or bottom spin. So that's at least what's happening here. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see when the tip of my cue comes up before I strike the cue ball. There I am trying to line everything up. And then there it comes up. And then there, look. That's what I'm trying to do every single solitary time. Look how the cue ball just popped its way back and then just basically held itself right in the middle of the table, unless of course a ball comes and bumps it all over the place. If I can do that on a consistent basis, how many balls did I make? Let's look at that one more time. How many balls did I make on the break? Because look, the balls are going everywhere. Saw the 2 ball and the 14 ball. A 2 balls on the break on that one. I think I saw the 2 ball and the 14 ball. Nathan French, you're saying that looks super hard? I mean, it is super hard, but that's why I practice it over and over again to hopefully try to make it easier on myself. Because the fact that I have to drop my elbow at the correct timing, follow through at the correct timing, like all these moving parts, I have to time them all correctly in order to be able to execute this kind of, or to get this kind of result. Now let's see what's happening here. It looks like I'm going to be shooting at the 4 ball. So I got position on the 7. So when we look at the rest of this table with the 4 ball gone, do we see any issues? Right, I had both a solid and a stripe down, and I went with solids. Why would I go with solids? Because what would I do here? This is what everybody should be thinking about, especially when they deal with an open table. Not what ball they can shoot at. I mean, clearly you want to know what ball you can shoot at so that way you can hopefully claim a set. But if you have the ability to run the table, well, what's going to cause you to determine whether or not you pick solids or stripes? Something like this. Because how am I going to deal with this? Now, I have the 9 ball here, right? If I can get my cue ball to land somewhere right around here, I can do this, bump into this ball, get it out in the open, and then have a shot at this. Like, that's a possibility. But then what other ball can I play that allows me to get that position? Right? Those are the things that you have to think of. Versus when we go back to this here, especially look at where my cue ball's at right now. Right? If I were to choose stripes, I'd have to shoot the 9 ball right now and try to get position on here. But if I make this 4 ball and get position on the 7, which is what I did, look at the rest of the solids. There's almost nothing that I have to do other than obviously make the ball and have good cue ball control as I transition from shot to shot. So where am I going to go from the 7 ball? I have position on the 7 ball. This 13 ball does not block me. Let's see. It looks like I have top spin. Cue ball's going to be rolling over to the side rail, probably behind the 3 ball. Comes off the side rail. I probably don't think I had any side spin. I've got position on the 3 ball. How am I going to get to this 1 ball? Roger Delgado, I like that. You're saying at this level, too many players try to run the table as the pros do, and the key to winning 8 ball is to know when to pull the trigger. And that's what I'm talking about. Not so much as to when, but being honest yourself as to knowing, can you pull the trigger? Do you have the skill set to be able to solve your problem spots, execute your cue ball control appropriately, and actually be able to run the table? Because if you do, then go ahead and go for it. So you see right there, when I came over here to look at the angle that I would want to have on the 1 ball, that's going to hopefully help me build some sort of pattern to figure out how I'm going to do this. Now, one thing that 8-ball players should be keen on is minimizing your cue ball movement, just like you do in straight pull. So I do believe I play a stop shot here. That way I'm set up for the 3 ball. Oh, not the 3 ball, the 6 ball, because I just shot the 3 ball. So from here, I should be just rolling forward. That's going to give me position on the 5. And then from here, since I got straight in on the 5, which is what I wanted, I'm just going to try to draw straight back to get position on the 1. Now here's where this is obviously where things could have gone wrong. I could have overdrawn it and hooked myself. I could have not drawn it enough. Now even this is kind of like a 50-yard line shot as far as I'm concerned, because there's no way for me to shoot this 1 ball in and hold position for the 8 to go into the side pocket. All right, that's why you see me playing it the way I'm playing it. 1, I was trying to get past the 15 ball to get here for the 8 to go into this corner pocket, because I did see that the 8 ball goes here. Or if I did run into the 15 ball, then I would have had a shot at the 8 to go into the side. and this is a stop shot. Or a stun shot since I have an angle. And that would be a break and run. Okay, so let's see if I can pop the cue ball correctly again. See, not quite. My cue ball goes off to the left. So what does that mean? That means I had to have hit slightly to the left of center between the cue ball and the one ball. That's the only way. So again, whatever it is I perceive to see between the cue ball and the head ball, I thought I was lined up straight on, but clearly I wasn't. Right? So it doesn't matter when you're breaking either. It's, just whenever you're shooting, period. Pay attention to what your cue ball does because it's not going to lie to you as to what you might have accidentally did. You could have accidentally spun the cue ball. You could not be aiming correctly, even though you think what you're seeing is correct when it's actually not. All right, so that's another inning. I don't remember if I made a ball. I'll have to find out here in a second. My opponent likes stripes, and I mean, look, he's got a good reason to like stripes. What do you do with these two? All right, so he takes out the 9 ball. I mean, stripes is the best layout. There's no stripe ball that's in trouble. Takes the 13 ball out. Looks like he was trying to get position on this guy, which is the right shot. Probably could have hit that just a little bit harder. Gonna cut this down to this corner here for the 15 ball. Nice shot. Avoids the scratch. Don't think he wanted to bump. That looks like that's the 10 ball. Don't think he wanted to bump the 10 ball closer to the 8 ball. So I must have made the 14 on the break. And then when I look at solids, I don't see the 7 ball. So I think I made 2 balls on the break again, but I scratched. Robin Lesson, yes, these are 7-foot tables. Our APA league here is played on 7-foot tables. He's going to go for the 11 ball. I wonder if he was trying to break this up. If so, I would think maybe drawing further down the rail to come this way and bump into this like this. Actually, I probably would have tried to get position over here. Let's look at this angle again. Yeah, we can see here when he hits this shot, here's where his cue ball hits. All right, so I think I probably would have drew this a little bit, maybe down to here and try to get it over here like this, because I think this ball goes. Like this would probably be ideal. And if it doesn't go, then I'm certainly trying to do this to break it apart, to come all the way back and break it apart. Yeah, I think I would have drew the cue ball further down the short rail to either possibly try to get position on. I think this is the 10 ball, but the more I look at it, I think it's the 14 ball. I could be wrong. I don't even know what this ball is. I don't even see the 11 ball anymore. Or that was the ball that he shot, I think. All right, so considering that if this ball goes freely here into this corner pocket without risking hitting the 8, then you'd want the cue ball to be somewhere over here. But how do you get there from the angle that he has here? There he goes, second guessing himself. What do you do? Okay, he's drawing the ball. Nope, changing his mind. Got a rolling cue ball again, or a little bit of top spin. He just plays the ball. The more I look at this, I think it's the 14 ball. I just can't really tell. And I kind of remember that when I saw him do that, when he leaned over the table to look closer at the shot, see right there, here, the reason why I come into play is because I want someone to come and watch the shot. He's going to be trying to cut this ball into the corner pocket, so I want to make sure, does he hit this ball first or does he hit the 8 ball first? Especially from this angle here, that he's approaching the ball. Right, so it's a good hit. He overcut the ball. If he overcut the ball, then that means he should have been able to make it. And it is the 14 ball. Now look what I have. Look where I'm starting, and look at this. I can clearly shoot this 4 ball. But what ball can I shoot at that's going to allow me to break up the 6 and the 2? There isn't one, or there isn't quote unquote an easy one. That's why you see me do this. Just try to slightly break them apart. Now, I didn't actually get the result that I wanted because you saw that I clipped my 2. I wasn't supposed to clip the 2. The idea was to try to get the 6 ball out and leave the cue ball behind the 2. Now, I still got the safety that I wanted. My opponent can't see his ball. But there was no reason for me to try to run the table when I don't have an easy ball that allows me to deal with this trouble spot. So instead, I just play a safety. And this is a video that I definitely need to make a video on about playing safeties. Because a lot of times, a lot of lower skill level players, and even some of the middle and upper skill level players, they think you just have to try to make every ball. Now, usually when you're in a position like this, I talk about this all the time. My opponent only has 1 ball left on the table, and he didn't finish the table. Right? So when I assess the table here, I say to myself, well, I can't run the table, so I don't want to make some sort of mistake and give a shot to my opponent. I'm going to make my opponent earn his shot. That's when I know to play some sort of safety. I could have made a ball or 2 and then maybe played safe later. That was certainly a possibility. But being where the cue ball was at, I was already in a good position to play this safety, and that's why I did that. Now, what you just saw my opponent do is the double the distance, or I think what's also referred to as the mirror system, where he checked to see here the distance between where his tip is and where the shaft touches the rail. He puts his finger and then pulls his cue back until the tip is on the rail here, and then wherever his finger was, he draws a straight line over to the cue ball to let him know where he has to shoot on the rail in order to possibly get a hit as to where he was measuring. And that allows him to get a good hit. Now, I've got a couple of spots that I still have to deal with. This 3 ball that I can use the 4 ball maybe to get to the 3 ball, and then there's still this. That's why you see me kind of bobbling my head around like, what am I going to do? How do I possibly solve this rack? Let's see. So I start with the 4. This is probably just a rolling cue ball, so that way I can get position on the 3. Just tap this ball in. So I shoot the 3 in and then kind of punch the cue ball off of the rail to get position on the 6, maybe? Yeah, kind of like that. I have to think that I put top left on this ball here to try to 2 rail out of the corner. And I wasn't expecting that. You see how I basically still clipped the 2 ball? Now the 2 ball is tied up next to the 14 ball. So what do I do here? Well, I have an opportunity to try to solve this. Matter of fact, does anybody see the opportunity of how to solve this? Right? Because, and what I mean by solving this, I don't want to bank the 2 ball. I want to figure out a way to develop or get position on the 2 ball. Does anybody see a way to do that? Right? Because I have position on the 5 ball. I can cut the 5 ball in if I do that. But if I do that, then my cue ball runs into the 1 ball. And I don't know if I can cut the 1 ball into the side pocket. It looks like I can. Or I can cut it all the way up here. Or I can play safe. Right? Because where's my opponent going to shoot their ball? As long as I leave the cue ball somewhere down here, where's my opponent going to shoot this ball? I can certainly play safe, but I try to play a little aggressive at this point. And what I end up trying to do, because you're going to see me measure it, I'm going to bank the 1 ball, and I want the 1 ball to hit his ball. And if it hits his ball, it knocks my ball loose, and my ball goes into the side pocket. That's what I try to do. So right here, you see me using the second system, the X system, to measure out the bank shot on the 1 ball. Except I want to make sure that I bank into the 14 ball. I want to clip that 14 ball. That way the 14 ball knocks my 2 ball loose. And I missed it. I made the ball, but I missed the other opportunity. So what does that mean now? That means I'm done. I'm not going to bother trying to make the 5 ball and get position on the 2. That's why you're going to see me purposely miss the 5 ball. All right, so there I was looking to see, is there an angle I can get on the 2 to where I can still cut the 2 ball in safely? And there isn't one. All right, so this is what I was talking about. There's a lot of players out there that would basically shoot the 5 ball in because they can and not realize how could you possibly get position on the 2? Or they would possibly try to shoot the 5 ball in and set up for a bank shot on the 2. But why am I going to set myself up for a shot that's not like a 90% chance of me making? Right? That's why you see me play this safety here. Because again, what I said earlier is, as long as my cue ball is down here, my opponent can't do anything. Right? Why is he going to try to risk moving this? Robin Lesson, you're saying why not play safe behind the 2? Well, if we go back to about right here, you're asking me why don't I get my cue ball behind. Whoops, what the heck is that? There we go. You're asking me why don't I try to get the cue ball somewhere behind here? And what? How do I do that? Hit the 1 ball maybe and go like this? Well, if I try to do that, what happens if I don't get it? What happens if my cue ball stops right here and I just give a free shot to my opponent? Right? That's the only thing that I would be worried about. Whereas you heard me say earlier, if my cue ball stays somewhere down here, my opponent doesn't have a shot. So playing some sort of safety would just mean leaving the cue ball down here. That's at least what I would be thinking. When we get back to this area here, let's see what my opponent decides to do. Because now, at least here, I put my 5 ball closer to the pocket. So if my opponent decides to do something wild with his 14 ball, chances are I should have a shot at the 5 ball. Should. And then hopefully my 2 ball is going to be knocked loose. Oh, my opponent can't be thinking about kicking at this ball, can he? Right, that's super risky, right? Especially if he hits my 2 ball, that's super risky. Ooh, what's he doing? He's aiming at my ball. Look at that. Now he actually shouldn't have stopped the cue ball while it was in motion. I mean, clearly the cue ball wasn't going to touch anything. But look what he did. He takes an automatic foul, gives me ball in hand, and puts my 5 ball over here, which is not a bad idea. Because how do I play the 5 ball and get position on my 2? Let alone how do I play my 2 ball and get position on my 5? Putting my 5 ball here was a really smart choice. So he didn't take the bait that I wanted him to do, since I left him an open shot at this 14 ball, but he still leaves it tied up with my 2 ball. But I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to try to shoot my 5 ball or shoot my 2 ball, because going from one to the other is really, really difficult. Right? So what do? I play another safety. This time, I'm going to knock my 5 ball further up table to try to get to where I can break it out, but I'm going to try to tuck the cue ball behind the 8 ball, like this. And I was successful. Now, ideally, I would not want my opponent to be able to see the 5 ball, but he can see the 5 ball. After I already watched him do what he did, I certainly don't want him to hit my 5 ball again. Right? But if he gives me ball in hand again and doesn't touch anything, now I can, shoot the 5 into the 14, have the 14 hit the 2 ball off. I'm in a better position to where, like, I have the advantage on the table here. But I just saw my opponent take a purposeful foul. He's more than likely going to do it again, since he didn't fall for my trap last time. I can't expect him to fall for it again this time. Let's see. What does he do? What do y'all do here? You see me playing these types of safeties on you. What do you do in a situation like this? As you can see, he's measuring up to hit my 5 ball again. What's he trying to do? So it looks like he wanted to maybe tie the 5 ball up next to both of these balls. So here's the kicker. Now that this 5 ball is up here, there is enough space between the 14 and the 2 ball for me to do this. All right, because now I can play from the 2 to the 5 and then from the 5 to the 8 and not really have to worry about anything. Dart guy, there is no rule about too many fouls. You're thinking of like in 9-ball where there's the 3-foul rule. There is no 3-foul rule in 8-ball. Right, so here's patience, right? This is where patience basically pays off. And that's why I always say, like, you just have to be honest with yourself. See, my opponent just gives me the game there. He doesn't let me shoot the 8-ball in. This is where you have to be honest with yourself on knowing whether or not if you think you can run the table or not. Now, certainly, I could have risked stuff with the 5-ball or the 2-ball when I had ball in hand the first time. But why do that when I can wait for a higher percentage chance of being able to win the game? Now, from here, I'm trying to make the 8-ball on the break. So now I'm doing the 2nd-ball break. Look at the 8-ball, but it gets stopped by the 11-ball. The 8-ball almost went here into the side pocket. Now, what ball did I make? I don't see the 3-ball anymore. Oh, watch this. You're about to see some magic here. I don't know how this happened. I'm gonna show you what happens here multiple times. Let's see here. I only see the 3-ball gone. There's 7 balls on the table, or 7 stripes on the table. Yeah, so only the 3-ball. Mike 104, you're asking me, am I friends with the opponent? I mean, everybody that's at my local pool, I'm kind of basically friends with, or acquaintances. So I have to be solids here, and I'm going to be shooting the 4-ball. Now watch what happens. Did y'all see that? Like, what the heck happened? You would think I'm doing like some sort of edit or something, but this is live. I'm playing a video file. What the heck happened? How does that 4-ball go past the 14 and not move it? Because what I was actually trying to do is this. That's what I was trying to do. But watch what happens. I'm going to play this frame by frame. I'm only capturing at 30 frames per second, so we're only going to get to see so much of it. Okay, right here. You can see right there, I'm going to completely miss the 14 ball. Right? I don't even touch it. I catch the side rail. Now, I don't know how this happens at this point. But clearly, like Bang Time is saying, I must have compressed that point so hard that I still end up hitting the inside jaw of the pocket and the ball falls in. Really weird, because look at this in real time. If I don't slow it, if you don't get to watch it at that slow of a speed, I've heard of compressing the side pocket point to get the ball to get an object ball to wrap around the side pocket point, but not really the corner ball point. That's why you see me, I get up and I'm like, what just happened? Really weird. But I still get to be at the table. But at the same time, my turn's over, right? What do I do from here? There's nothing I can do. All right, so all I do is with a rolling ball, I try to separate the 7 and the 2, and I want to put the cue ball right over here next to my opponent's 14 ball. That way he can't shoot it. He can shoot it whatever else he wants to, fine, but he can't shoot at this ball. All right, so we look and see. I've got my 5 ball tied up over here. My opponent's got this giant cluster that he's got to deal with. He has a shot at the 11 ball. He can obviously hit his 14 ball and his 9 ball. Let's see what he does. Like he's going to go for the 11. No, it looks like he plays safe. Ooh. I have the 1 ball here in the side pocket. Do I try to get my cue ball to go this way and break all this up? I would think that's what I'm going to try to do. Unless the hit is too thin and there's no way for me to avoid hitting the 9 ball. Oh, I went for it. I went for it, but to no avail. Look at that. I made the cluster worse. Now this doesn't really look all that bad for my opponent. He's going to play the 10 ball. Is he going to go from the 10 to the 11? That's what he tried to do. And what I meant by that is I thought if he figures out a way to get position on this ball, like getting his cue ball right here, he can shoot that ball in, drive his cue ball over here, and try to break all this up, and his 9 ball is an insurance shot. But it looks like we're going to see maybe another safety. Oh, look at that. He wanted to tuck the cue ball right behind the 11 ball. That was a good shot, or a good try. What ball did he just make? He just made the 10 ball. Okay. So now what do I do? Looking at the 1 ball, what am I thinking about? Oh, look at this. I take his ball away. That way he can't break out this cluster. That's what that was all about. How many of y'all do stuff like that? Usually people don't think about making your opponent's ball, but look at the position that I put my opponent in. Because you just heard me describe how this is a good ball to try to break up this cluster and have the 9 ball as an insurance shot. So I take that option away, and now I have a ball that I can use to try to break up this cluster. And then, I mean, I'd have to hope that maybe my 6 ball becomes a backup shot unless I get stuck behind the cluster. So I just made my opponent's 14 ball. And the cue ball is really in a position where it's a little risky for my opponent to try to break up the cluster by shooting the 9 or the 11. Right? So I put myself in a rather comfortable position. Right? So he tries to make the 11 ball. Look what I'm about to do again. How many of y'all do this? How many of y'all do this? Like I said, what can my opponent do here? Like I'm not supposed to be. You would think normally I'm supposed to be shooting solids. Why am I shooting stripes in? This is like playing chess, right? We're just kind of maneuvering pieces around the board until I'm ready to attack, which is what someone was talking about, waiting to pull the trigger. And see, he tried to make my 1 ball. Now look at this. All of his stripes are over here. So what do you think I'm going to try to do? Do I shoot my 1 ball or do I shoot my 6 ball? Because what the heck do I do with my 2, 7, and 5? Right? Smartest decision I think I could have done there. I had shots. I could have shot the 1. I could have shot the 6. But how do I open the 2, 7, or the 5? All right, since I can't do that, then there's no reason for me to try to take my soldiers off the table until I can find an opportunity to do so. That was another inning. All right, so these are usually like strategy decisions that I sometimes don't see from a lot of players, whether it's upper skill, middle tier, or even lower skill, because it's usually just shoot, 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 shoot. Now, not everybody plays this way. I mean, there are some that know better, that know like, well, I can't do anything, so they do play safe. But a lot of times when there's a shot option, then people tend to take the shot option, not realizing that a safety is probably the better option. Right? I got ball in hand. So with ball in hand, the only thing I could try to do is solve this problem here. That's why you see me looking right at it. Like, what am I going to do here? Did I plan for the 1 to block the bank? No. I just planned for the cue ball to come over here so that way he has to, like, if anything, if my opponent tries, if my opponent does have a 1 rail kick in order to be able to hit this stuff, fine. So even if he hits it, fine. He's going to disturb it, maybe make it better for me, maybe make it worse. Who knows? All I know is even if he does get a successful hit, I have the 1 ball right here that I can shoot at. So what do I do? I try to play the 7 ball into the corner pocket, and I have to try to open these up at the same time. So this is done with basically a lot of bottom spin. Like, I'm going to try to draw the crap out of this ball. I'm going to draw it right out of the cluster if I can. All right, doesn't happen, though. I must have had too much of an angle. I mean, look, I'm pretty darn close to that 5 ball. So I don't think I can get any closer. The only alternative I would have had would be to put the cue ball further up. But then I think, like, I can't get any flatter on the 7 ball, so that way I can just try to just draw right into this and then have the 1 ball possibly as a backup shot. Because you basically saw the cue ball just fly over to the rail, clip the 2, and not really do anything. So in reality, I probably should have hit this ball a little bit softer. That way the draw takes effect quicker. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to get a better result, But since I hit it as hard as I did, that's why the cue ball flies over to the side rail and doesn't really give me a decent breakout shot at all. All right, so what do I do here? Should be another safety, I would think. Yeah, pretty much another safety. Or at least I tried to do another safety. But I unfortunately left the shot for my opponent. I left him a good shot too. Watch what my opponent does here. It's also kind of risky, but it's still a good shot. There's always like little particular areas of the match that I can still remember. Everything else I just forget about, or I don't remember. All right, my opponent has a shot on the 15 ball to go into the side pocket. Watch what he does with this cue ball. Bam! All right, but look. No real reward. Now, even if he would have gotten rewarded, he still has this 9 ball that he has to deal with, since my 6 ball guards the pocket. All right. What can he do here? I can't tell if he can cut this ball into the side pocket, or side pocket. Cut this ball into the corner pocket. If he can, then that'll be a good thing. He can have the cue ball come over to the side rail here and get positioned on the 13. But then still, what does he do with the 9 ball? Robin Lesson, would I consider this to be unlucky? I would. I mean, he went for a shot and went for the breakout and just didn't really have anything. But that's also why I stress the idea about when you go for breakout shots about having insurance shots. Now, in this case, he doesn't really have any insurance shots, so he did what he could do, right? So like, because there's going to be a point in the game where you just have to go for something, otherwise you end up just losing the game. At that point, or do you just keep delaying the game until that whole idea of waiting to attack, waiting to pull the trigger? Now he gets after getting unlucky, he gets a lucky leave on me here by knocking in my ball. So all I have is a shot at the 1 ball. I'm gonna go ahead and go for it. There's no reason for me to play safe now. Like, I'm in attack. I have to be in attack mode. All right, so I play the 1 ball into the corner pocket. I have position on the 2. Position on the 2. Position on the 5. Gently roll the cue ball in, or roll the 5 ball in. And I think with this shot here, topspin with a twist of right, I think, to try to come through here. I don't think I was, or no, I saw left spin. There we go. I came over here because I don't want to risk running into this. So never mind. That was top left. And then I have a shot here on the 8 ball to go into the corner pocket. Anybody that's new, this is my pocket marker. That's what this little guy is down here. Ta-da! I managed to take this one down 5-1. Now, usually when I try to do these reviews, I try to look at like what's the biggest point of this match here. Well, I would have to sit there and say like basically those safety areas that you saw, where especially on the previous rack when we were toggling back and forth between my 2 ball and my 5 ball, and you saw where my opponent was basically knocking my 5 ball around, giving me ball in hand until he accidentally messed up, gave me ball in hand with an opportunity to be able to win the match. And then you saw in this rack here, I was purposely making my opponent's balls, taking away his options, as well as protecting the cue ball at the same time, still allowing me to have some sort of advantage on the table, right? So it's I say this all the time. about just making sure that you're just being honest with yourself on what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing on the table. If you have the skill set to be able to clear the table and you're confident that you can clear the table, I mean, by all means, go for it. It's obviously not going to be 100%. There's that small percentage that you can mess up, right? But just know that if you get towards the end and your run out's getting harder and harder, and you start realizing to yourself, yeah, I might not be able to run it, then you probably should stop and do some sort of safety like I did on some of these racks here. Because otherwise, like you saw on one particular rack, my opponent got all the way down to one single ball, and my first thing that I did was I played a safety. I'm making him chase after that ball. Because anytime you get down to the 8 ball and like you didn't have a shot at the 8 ball, or you get down to where you have 1 or 2 balls left and you don't have a shot at those balls, well, then more than likely you're going to lose that rack. Because the only way for you to be able to win that rack is you're hoping that your opponent makes some sort of mistake and gives you an opportunity to either shoot at the last ball or the last balls that you have, or possibly shoot the 8 ball. And that's usually not a position that you would want to be in, because that basically means you won by luck. You want to basically win your matches by having control of the table, so that's why you got to know when to play a shot versus when to play a safety. That's probably the best advice that I can give, and that's usually the way that I try to play my racks, but sometimes I'm able to do it, and sometimes I'm not. It just really depends. All right. So, while I prepare for the next match, does anybody have any questions? Let's see here. I'm going to look at some of the chat and see what everybody's been talking about. Nathan French, you're asking, do I need a lot of left spin to do that kind of shot? The short answer is probably going to be yes, but at the same time, it really just depends on the angle at which the cue ball is approaching the rail. So, like, you already know that if you're cutting a ball to the left, you already know that your cue ball is going off to the right. Well, the question is going to be well, how far off to the right is it actually going? Because anybody can just basically, take the cue ball. Instead of shooting straight up the table, shoot at a slight angle, like shoot to your what would be to your right. And how much left spin do you need to put on the cue ball in order to pull it back, to almost come straight back at you, versus how much left spin do you need to put on it to make it come completely away from you? Now, the greater the angle that you shoot off of, then obviously the more opposite spin that you need in order to try to cancel the natural rebound that the cue ball is going to do. But if you're able to see like how sharp of an angle does the cue ball come off the object ball and how it's approaching the rail, that's going to be able to tell you whether or not how much side spin that you actually need. So if from the contact spot of the object ball, the contact point of the object ball to the angle at which it's approaching the rail, I mean, think about it. If it's approaching it at a 5-degree angle going off to the right, it probably doesn't take a whole lot of side spin to pull it back to the left. It's obviously going to take some, but it won't take a lot. But if the cue ball is heading off towards the rail to your right at like I don't know, I'm probably making up numbers at this point, a 15-degree angle or more, then yeah, it probably requires a whole lot more side spin in order to try to pull it back in the opposite direction. But it's really just going to depend on the angle at which the cue ball approaches the rail, on whether or not if you can reverse the angle off of the rail. So I hope that makes sense. Robin Lesson, I like this. Your strategy is making most opponents angry and they start to sell out fast. That's with all the safeties that I play, or that you would basically play, which is ideal, right? Because a lot of times, there's that notion where a lot of people think that the game isn't played with safeties. You're supposed to go for every shot, right? Prove how good you are, blah 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 blah. And whenever you play a safety on someone, yeah, that just goes like, what the heck are we doing? Like, you're not supposed to be playing safe or whatever. And of course, that attitude gets them a little upset. They could possibly willy-nilly just start shooting the cue ball around because they're upset. But while they're upset, I'm in control, and I just happen to run the table. Huge benefit of having a safety game. safety plays in your game. Let's see what else. Just gonna scroll up real quick. I'm gonna jinx myself by saying, fortunately, I haven't seen any bots. So let's see if we'll see if a bot happens to pop their way in. I don't really see any more questions. But I can say, if you're just happening to pop into the live stream and you haven't done so already, please give this stream or this live stream a thumbs up. It really does help me out in the YouTube algorithm, so that way hopefully more people can discover the live stream while it's live, and then hopefully people can discover the stream when it's over as well. I see that I have about 100 of y'all in here and about 47 likes, so can we get the likes up just a bit more? I don't ever ask for a 100% ratio. But let's at least try to keep it around 50% usually. So if I have 100 viewers, let's get the likes up above 50 at the very least. I did see at one point that it had over like 150 people in here. So yeah, like just do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for me. Backyard billiards. You're asking me, do I ever play One Pocket? I do from time to time, but there's not really a whole lot of people in my area that play One Pocket. And I see Robert Allison is asking, where's Zelda? Does anybody want me to go get him? Because I have to walk away and find him. I can certainly do that. I'm pretty sure he's just out there. That's why I left the door open, just in case he happens to come in here. I don't think he's lying around anywhere in my office at the moment because I don't see him. But who wants to see Zelda? Because I can certainly go and find him. And then we'll go on with the next match. There, hang on a second. I'll be right back. And actually, I can still talk to you. So it's really dark in my house. So Alexa, turn on the living room. Okay. And I found him. Ugh. Ugh. So here comes the fur ball. Ugh. Whoops. Here he is. I have a ball for him to play with, except he doesn't look interested in playing with it. Say hi to everybody. You can see he doesn't give a crap. He doesn't even want to be here. This is Zelda, everybody. This is a he, unfortunately. It's not a she. I know Zelda's a female name from The Legend of Zelda. I've told the story before about how this is a rescue cat, and initially, the vets actually identified Zelda as a female. But then when it came time to get Zelda fixed, a little phone call later, and they were like, we have a problem, and we thought there's maybe some medical complications or whatever. I'm like, what's that? And it's like, well, we found something, and Zelda's not a girl. So, but pretty much just stuck with the name, and just left it at that. And as you can see, he's not thrilled at all. All right. Let's see if I can get you to chase your ball, though. Go get it. Maybe not. All right. At any rate, well, there's his ball. So we'll see if he'll go get. We'll see if there he is. We'll see if he gets it. He's just not into it today. He's not into it at all. He's not into it at all. Well, there he goes. He's playing with the ball. All right. But let's go ahead. Oh, there he goes. Now he's really playing it, but now he's out of sight. Jason Sanders, you're saying with me playing straight pull so much, you're surprised that you don't see me spin balls in? I don't typically try to spin a ball in. I only try to spin a ball in when it's necessary. And more times than not, it's not necessary. I mean, as long as you contact the object ball at the correct spot, the ball's going to go in. The only reason why I would usually want spin is because of how I expect the cue ball to react off of a rail in order for me to get position. Because when I'm playing straight pull, I'm not trying to spin balls in either. I'm just making sure that I make them and then get position on the next ball or break up clusters when I need to, etc., etc. But I'd have to rewatch the stream to see what you're talking about on the second rack where I didn't need to break out the three ball, which is more. I mean, sometimes that's going to be the case where like for me it all just depends on really how difficult I think it might be to transition from one shot to the next versus bumping it, purposely bumping into a ball in order to play position. And straight pull would pretty much be the same thing, because when the table is solved, everything's out in the open. You certainly don't want to run into balls because you can just make things worse. You normally want to try to avoid that, but then sometimes you do want to purposely bump into a ball. And so it just really depends on whatever the layout is going to be. So when I go back and watch the stream, I can certainly see what you're talking about on the second rack with the breakout on the 3. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next match. Here we go. Now, in this matchup here, I've played up against this 7 before. I've lost to him a couple of times, and you've seen me beat him a couple of times. This is the other 7 that I've referred to as a Super 7, because I've been told I'm referred to as a Super 7 myself. Y'all have seen me play this guy before. He plays lights out. He has a wonderful break and whatnot. Usually one of my nemesis whenever I play him. And there's only like a handful of us, like I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 of us that when we all get ready to play each other, we're like each other's arch rival, and it really tries to pull our games out when we try to play against one another. So this is going to be another race to 5. Let's see who's going to break first. And it looks like I'm going to break first. All right, so we're going for that pop break still. There's the pop. You can see I went slightly off to the left, so I'm not hitting the head ball as squarely as I would like. But I did see that I dropped the 7 ball on the break. I don't think I dropped anything else. And look at this mess that I have to deal with. The 2 and the 1. The 4 ball's okay. I think the 8 ball clears, and then I've got an issue with my 5 ball. All right, so this is a rack that I pretty much assess very quickly that I'm not going to run. Now, I currently don't have an opportunity to play a safe, so that's why you see me go ahead and try to pocket the 6 ball. All right, and I do so. Almost hung it up on the table there. All right, but look at the layout of the table, right? There's nothing I can do here that allows me to solve the table. So why would I just want to make this 3 ball just to make it, right? There's no real good purpose for me to make the 3 ball, even though I can, which is why I do this. I play a safety. Because what are the odds of me making the 3 ball, breaking this up, having some sort of shot, and then figuring out how to make the 1, 2, and the 4 and break the 5 ball out or bank the 5 or whatever? Right? I'm asking for a whole lot if I attempt to go for this. Right? My opponent gets a good hit. So my safety worked. But now what do? I'm still in the same boat. Right? I can obviously hit my 4 ball. It's either the 4 or the 3. One or the other. But it looks like it's going to be the 3 because here comes another safety. Now my opponent can see this ball. I mean, that's fine. Now it's the waiting game. When do either of us decide to attack the table? Oh. There. So you can see my opponent at least frees up his stripe and then kind of protects the cue ball at the same time, because what can I do with the 5 ball? Not really a whole lot. Well, Zelda's actually playing now. He keeps bringing me his ball, except I don't know where it went now. So when you look at this situation again, it's pretty much still the same thing, right? All I have to do is try to make sure that I protect the cue ball. So what's the safest place I can put the cue ball? Somewhere over here, right? My opponent has a shot, right? Fine. But I really wanted the cue ball to be closer to the rail so I can cut off access to the rail. That way, the only way he can hit the cue ball is with topspin, and you really can't control the cue ball. But I hit this one just a little too hard because it comes off the rail. Yeah, he has a free shot, fine. But he has to solve his 15 ball, and he has to solve his 9 ball. All right, so he makes it, so good. What was that? That was the... What ball was that? Wasn't even paying attention. It's the 14 ball. Okay. Looks like he's shooting the 12. He's got some draw on the ball. Oh, and he miscues. What was he trying to do? He had draw on the ball. Looks like he was going to maybe draw over into this area here, or maybe draw into the 9. What do y'all think? Draw into the 4, 12, and 13, or draw over into the 9 ball? Can't really tell. Maybe the 9 ball. Maybe he was going to draw into the 9 ball, and he's got the 11 ball as a backup shot. Very common thing I think a lot of pool players do when they try to put bottom spin on the cue ball. They probably dip at the very last second because that's what causes that miscue like that. Now I'm gonna try to run the table from here, believe it or not, because I have ball in hand. What can I do here? Matter of fact, how many of y'all would try to run the table from here? Because I'm going to. Or at least I'm going to try to. Because usually when you have ball in hand, the ball that you should be trying to target is the hardest one to play position on, provided, of course, that it's not a cluster. Right? My 4 ball goes. I can't obviously shoot the 1 ball because it's in a cluster. But what I can do is shoot the 4 ball, and I'm going to push through that 10 ball. Kind of like that. All right, and look what happens. I freed up the 8 ball, but now look, how do I free up the 1 ball? Well, I can do that right now when I shoot the 2 ball. I can try to draw off the 2 ball and then separate the 1 from the 9. Because look, if I hit the 1 ball, where does the 9 go? The 9 goes away this like this, and that leaves this pocket open for the 1 ball. Kind of like that. And then look, I have backup shots in case something goes wrong because I didn't get position on the 1 ball, but look, I have a very good key ball that gets me to the 8 ball. All right, so next it looks like I'm going to shoot the 5. This looks like I'm coming down this way and spinning this way. So that's probably some left spin like this. Because now I can play the 3 in the corner, stun the cue ball over to this area here. I'd like to get flat on the 3 if I could, or flat on the 1 if I could, because then I could just play a stop shot. And you can see I have an angle at this one ball, so I got to be very careful at how I hit it, because I can easily lose position on my 8. I think all I do here is I just roll the one ball in. I don't really try to do anything fancy. Just like that. And so again, this is where all that straight pull that I've been playing has been helping me with dealing with clusters and knowing how I want to try to maneuver the cue ball around, especially when I know the cue ball is running into other balls and where are they going to end up. Now in this matchup here, you see that we're just calling where we're going to make the 8 ball. In the last one, you saw where I was using a marker. Normally in 8 ball, or in APA, you are supposed to use some sort of personal item and mark where you're going to play the 8 ball. But at the local league level, if you and your opponent agree, you can just call it. But when you go to the city event or the national event, you always have to mark the pocket. I don't think there's no way of saying, like, we agreed to just call the pocket. Right, so there was almost a decent pop break, except the cue ball starts to roll forward a little bit. So that means I dropped my elbow too soon and actually hit the cue ball with a bit of topspin and not actually hold the cue ball. Now it looks like I made the 4 ball on this one here. So not really a whole lot that I can work with, except you saw me measure up for a 3-5 combination. So that's at least what I'm going to try. Right, you can see there, failed at the combination. So let's see what my opponent's going to do with stripes. Got his work cut out for him since both of my solids are protecting the 8 ball. Plays the 15 ball into the side, has position on the 11, the 10, and the 14. Curious what he's going to be doing here with the 12 ball. Looks like he likes the 14. Oh, but he bobbles the pocket. We can see where his cue ball's at. He must have been trying to get position for this ball here. I don't think there's any reason to try to break this up from the angle at which he had. So I'm shooting the 7 ball. Looks like I have topspin, which means I'm coming down here for the 6 ball. Probably wish I would have hit that harder, but you know what? When I look at this in retrospect, let me see what happened, what I do next before I say what I want to say here. I would have to think I'm playing the 6 ball. Yep. What do? I roll the 6 ball in. And I don't think I have position on the 1, but I do have a shot at the 3. Now, I don't remember if I have to play the 3 into the 5 or if the 3 goes by itself. But the reason why I was saying in retrospect, because of what's going to happen later on, so I'll wait until the pivotal moment, and then we'll go back and talk about this particular area that I'm referring to. So let's see here. All right, I played the 3 in. I did not want to bump into the 5 ball. Because now I have to make sure that I get my cue ball back here so I can see this part of the 5 ball. Looks like clearly I can shoot the 1 ball into the corner pocket here. And if I'm not mistaken, I want my cue ball to come off the side rail and come over here so I can have a shot at the 5. I would think. Or no, I do. Looks like maybe I have position on the 2 and I'm looking at the 1 to get from the 1 to the 5. That's what you saw me do here when I put my cue stick right here. So maybe I'm going to shoot the 2 and then try to use the 1. Can't really tell where I'm hitting at on the cue ball. Yeah. So that's what it was, but you can see I did not get the position I wanted, right? My cue ball has to be like somewhere right around here in order for me to shoot the 1 into the corner here and have my cue ball come like this, just for me to have position on the 5. Yeah, I don't think the combo was actually available, Nathan French. And even if I did play the combo, the 3 ball would more than likely tie up next to these 2 balls, which would be in a worse position than I was in. So now here, I'm going to try to draw the 1 ball, and I have to obviously land right here. And you can see I obviously didn't do it. So now, is there room between here? Because that's all I have. I'm not going to try this. I'm not going to try kicking the ball through here. So that's why I'm trying to look to see if I can actually squeeze the cue ball in between these 2 and make the 5. And you can see I don't. I end up clipping the 8. Now, what I wanted to go back and look at in retrospect was this area right here. When I got to here, specifically when I played the 7 ball, I'm starting to think more that if I would have just hit this a little bit harder and get the cue ball right here, I would play the 5 ball now and get my cue ball to come out in the open. In retrospect, I probably think this is the better decision, or get further down here anyway and then play the 6 ball and still try to get some sort of position like this to still play the 5 ball first, then deal with these the 1, 2, and the 3 afterwards. So it's either from the 7 to the 5 or from the 7 to the 6 to the 5 is probably the better route that I could have taken. I think. I can't imagine anything else. So Nathan French, you're talking about the combo, right? So when you think about it, if I make that combo, like I said, what does the 3 ball do? The 3 ball hits the 5 in, comes off the side rail, and comes over here. I have to make sure, obviously, that I hit it with some sort of pace to where it doesn't cluster up. But then, not only does it cluster up, does it move into a position where it comes out into the open, right? Lots of things that I actually could have risked there. But when I look at this moment in retrospect, I think this is probably the better decision, to where if I would have got better position on the 6 ball, I'd either play it the way that I did and get position back over here to do a rail first shot on the 5, which automatically causes my cue ball to escape the corner. And then, I mean, if I do get fortunate and land here, I can attack almost any ball that I want. The 1, 2, or the 3 from this position is makeable. So that probably makes this the better route. Like, I could have gotten out if I would have played the 7 ball better. So I think here, this is where this shot was actually my mistake. And I didn't play this shot as good as I could have. I don't know. What do y'all think? Do y'all see anything better? Like, I kind of think I could probably play the rail first shot now, but then when do I come down here to get the 6 ball? That's gonna be the issue. So, like I said, maybe it would have been better if I'd have gotten further down here, play the 6 in, and then get position for the 5 off of the rail, because that's certainly a makeable shot, at least I think. Now, nonetheless, we come back over here. My opponent has ball in hand. And when you think about it, look, this 12 ball's in trouble, right? So what do I talk about? Solve your problems as soon as possible, right? And that's what my opponent tries to do. Now, his 12 ball goes now, but what about the 8? I mean, the 8 does go here, So that probably means that the 12 ball is going to be his key ball to get position on the 8. But ideally, would you want to try to play this tight of position here? Not sure. Oh, what the heck do you do here? This is almost like in straight pool. Like, do you commit to your key ball? Do you commit to your break ball, or do you call an audible and try to do something else? Right? He's committing to that 12 ball being his key ball, and look what he does. Banks the 9 ball in. Good shot on the 12. But shanks the 8 ball and gives me the rack. Unfortunate miss there. Now, what I would like to talk about here, did we just say that my opponent missed the shot? I mean, clearly he did, right? But is this a shot that he should miss? I would think not. And so usually, one thing that I've been trying to incorporate into my game is notice that when he makes this ball, he walks over, calls the shot, gets down, and shoots it, and just happens to bobble it. I would tend to think that right here, he's in a key position to where he either has to play safe, which he clearly could have done, right? He could have played safe, and I'm surprised that he didn't, because since my 5 ball's hooked, he's going for the win. So he clearly could have played safe. But after he successfully banks this 9 in, and then plays this ball, at this point here, I would walk back to my teammate's table, grab a drink, do something like think about what's probably going on in his head mentally. Like, I just got done doing a whole bunch of hard stuff, and now I'm on this easy shot here. That how many times do you take an easy shot for granted, and you end up missing the shot? Right? So walking away from the table after just doing all of that, and then just slowly coming back to the table, resetting your thought process, your train of thought, your state of mind, trying to come back at this 8 ball with a clear head and give this 8 ball shot the same attention that you did on the 9 ball, that you did on the 12 ball. And I'm not saying that he didn't, but what I am saying is when we watch him go from the 9 ball to here, there's no pause, right? He's just going up and trying to finish the rack. Now, if he'd have done what I'm suggesting, does that mean he's going to make the shot? I mean, it doesn't guarantee it, but I would tend to think that just resetting your mindset after doing just a bunch of hard stuff probably helps you to be able to come and be able to make the shot now that your head is a little bit more clear than it was before you got there. Just something to think about. So not quite a pop break. You can see the cue ball come all the way over to the side rail here. I think it got bumped back up in this direction here, but I didn't make a ball either. And against this type of player, I don't want to have a spread like this and not make a ball. So he likes solid, so he takes the 4 ball. Solids actually looks really good. He just has to figure out what to do with the 8 ball, or the 8 ball goes here in the side pocket with no issue. Plays the 1 ball. Looks like he gets position on the 5. Probably goes from the 5 to the 7. And then what? From the 7 to the 6, maybe? That just overrolls that a bit. You can see, yeah, he had to have been going from the 7 to the 6, but now he has to shoot the 3. Now his cue ball is going to run into the 8 ball, so that kind of frees it up. Or at least I would have made the cue ball run into the 8 ball. That was a good shot on the 3. Now has position on the 6. But how do you get position on the 2? You try to zigzag the cue ball back up here? Oh, that's what he's trying. But doesn't get it. Let's see here. The only shot that I see with the 2 ball is my favorite shot, which is the cut cross bank shot. Cue ball has to come up to this rail and break the 8 out. I think that's what he's trying to do here. Yep. This ends up undercutting the ball. And I get to come to the table. Let's see. Buster, you're saying you don't see me use a drag shot very often. What are your feelings on that shot? Carl Boys and Niels Fine swear by that old drag shot. I mean, Carl Boys and Niels Fine more than likely play on 9-footers, where probably doing a drag shot is more useful than on a 7-foot table. There are times when I actually do use a drag shot on a 7-foot table, but like you said, I just don't do it very often because more times than not, especially depending upon the angle at which I give myself, I'm usually able to just do some sort of rolling cue ball or just like a stun draw or something to where I don't really have to use a drag shot. But I do use it from time to time, just not very often when it comes to a 7-foot table. All right, so I'm at the table. I'm going to deal with this half of the table so I don't have to worry about it anymore. This looks like top left. Does that mean I'm getting position on the 11? No, what am I doing? Well, I have position on the 9, that's for sure. And see, when I look at this, like I said, this is one of the main reasons why I like doing these reviews. Let's just say I don't know what I'm going to do here. I mean, at this point in time, I obviously do whatever it is I'm going to do. I'm in the spur of the moment, blah, blah, blah. But when I look at this stuff in retrospect, I should have just hit the cue ball into the 11, make the 11 go off the rail and come over here and park the cue ball right here. A nice, good safety where the 9 ball, these 2 balls block my opponent from the 2 ball instead of doing what I'm going to do here. Right, I play the 9 ball, break out my 12. Now, look, I get fortunate. Right, I bobbled my 9 ball, so I get a little fortunate here. Because from here, I would have to play my 11 and then get position on these guys and try to figure out what else to do. Oh, look at this. Just like my last opponent. Look what he does. Ties up 2 of my stripes instead of trying to play a hit on his 2 ball. How smart was that? So what do I do here? This looks like I'm going to play the 12 ball. I must be trying to draw into the cluster here, and I have the 10 ball and the 9 ball as backup shots. See what I mean? I don't necessarily get a shot at either of these 2, but I do have a shot at the 9 ball. But again, look at this in retrospect. Bank the 11 ball, tuck the cue ball back here. That's another good safety that I could have played. That's probably what I should have done. Let's see. What am I doing here? Looks like I got a lot of topspin because I'm bridging over a ball. I mean, I see an out, but like I said, when we're watching this in retrospect, I already saw two opportunities where I could have played safe. And I think obviously at this point here, I'm committed to the out. Because now I'm playing the 11 ball with a bit of top right spin, come 2 rails around, and get position on the 10. Did I do what I think I did here? I did. This is where I messed up. I'm trying to draw back for the 15 when I should have rolled the ball. All right, so really, we saw two opportunities where I should have played safe. And at this point here, I try to draw the cue ball back. Right? What should I have done? Oh, why did I do that again? Cancel. What should I have done? I should have played this ball with some topspin. I should have cheated the pocket, knocked the 10 ball in, and come off the rail like this, instead of trying to draw the ball back. That's why you always hear the say, what is it? Draw for show, follow for dough. In this case here, I certainly think I should have followed the ball, come off the side rail, and get some sort of an angle on the 15 ball rather than trying to draw into the correct angle here. So we saw two opportunities where I should have played safe, and this shot right here, I played this shot incorrectly. They didn't draw it enough. So all I can do here is play safe. And where is the safest place I can put the cue ball? Somewhere up here. Don't really want any kind of fancy movement on the cue ball. All right, I want to get my ball away from his 2. Right, and I thought this was a safe place. Like he has a shot, but this is a tough shot. Just not a tough shot for him, though. That was an awesome shot on the 2 ball. Gets position on the 8 to go here into the corner pocket. And then takes the rack down. My opponent is on the board. Okay, he's going for a second ball break. Jeez, how many balls did he make on the break? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. He made 3 solids on the break. 2 balls gone, 3 balls gone, and the 6 ball is gone. And look at the layout that he has. Plays the 7, just rolls it in, has automatic position for the 1. This is like a dream layout that you'd want to have. 1 goes down, follows forward for the 4. Cuts the 4 into the corner. Ooh, did he roll this too much? Obviously wants to play the 5 in the side. Oh, look at that spin. Let's look at that again. This is the same question people were asking about, like how much spin does it take to cancel the angle that it goes into the rail? Because look at that. I'm going to play this slowly. Look how the cue ball wants to come to his right, and he's got so much left spin on the ball, he forces it to go into the other direction. We're going to play this frame by frame. Hits the 5 ball in. Look at the cue ball. Like I said, what angle is it going into the rail off to his right versus how much counter spin does he have on the ball to make it go in the opposite direction? That's what I'm talking about. And then just like that, we're all tied up, 2-2. Oop. All right. Here we go again. Second ball break. What doesn't make a ball? I think he broke dry. Or no, wait. He didn't break dry, did he? That's him at the table. What did he make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He must have made a stripe. I don't see the 10 ball. Never mind. Misspoke. Tried to go for the 15 ball. Gets a little lucky. This is where you hear everybody say, APA! Also gets a little lucky and ties up two of my solids together. Okay, plays the 11 ball in. What do we do here? Oh, look at that. He was going for it. He wanted that. He wanted to be able to move this. Looks like he's going for this now, though. That's all he has. Ends up missing the ball altogether, but then catching it on the kick. Now I'm back at the table. All right. Yes, Nathan French, in APA, you don't have to call a ball. The only ball that you have to call is the 8 ball. So you see here, it looks like I've got a rolling ball on the 6 ball. That allows me to get position on the 2 or the 5. So that means that there is some space between the two. They're not exactly cluttered up like I thought. Now, I think I'm shooting the 2 ball because that's closer to me, and I probably have a little bit of right spin on this one, so that way I can get position on the 5 next. Just like that. So this is kind of the same thing that we just saw, just not as dramatic as the last shot here. The cue ball naturally wants to come over here. Do I let it, or do I spin it over this way? I think I spin it to the left. Yeah, so that's more top left spin. That way I can get position on the 1 or the 3. So if we look at that again, because look at the angle at which I have. This is the way the ball is going to go, which means the cue ball naturally goes this way, which means it naturally should have went this way. But since I have the left spin and the angle at which the cue ball is approaching the rail, the left spin counters it enough to make it go this way. Kind of like that. What's the rest of my out here? Or am I out? 1 ball's next. All right, so what am I doing here? I got position on the 1, but now I'm looking at the rest of my pattern. I want to know exactly how am I going to try to shoot these last 5 balls. That's including the 8 ball. Cue ball naturally wants to go this way, so I would have to think I'm going to try to get position on the 7. Ooh, I spun this ball. Ah, that's because I'm trying to get position on the 4. I didn't get position on the 4. So that had to have been a little bit of draw on some left spin. I do remember now that I was trying to get position on the 4, but I didn't get it. So the only thing I can shoot here is the 7 ball. We can watch that the cue ball naturally wants to come to this rail, so I would think I'm trying to get position back over here where I get position on the 4 or the 3 ball. Ooh, I drew it. Never mind. Uh-oh. Ooh, I got a little lucky there. Got a little lucky there. Clearly, I almost scratched. You can see in this position here, the only thing I can try to do is draw the cue ball back for the 3. And we already saw where I had some failure spots at drawing the cue ball. So I tried to make sure that I did hit the ball hard enough this time to actually draw the darn ball. But I didn't draw it enough. All right, so what am I looking at? I can see that my cue ball is going to run into this stripe. So here's where I purposely want to bump into a ball since I failed to get good position on the ball. And by running into my opponent's stripe, it holds the cue ball for position on the 8. and I retake the lead, 3-2. Let's see. Pixie, you could have hit the 7 soft and leave the 4 straight in the corner. Let's go back and look. Okay, you're possibly right. My cue ball's going like this, so you're talking about possibly getting position for the 4 like this. But then where does the cue ball go? Look how much control I have to have on the cue ball to get position on the 3. Either one of those shots. Those shots are certainly possible. Right? I certainly don't want to rule those options out. But then that also means that I'm playing from the 3 to the 8. So again, that's also possible. But this is where I would have to say, like I said, I was trying to get position on the 4 ball. That way I can get position. I'm pretty sure from the 4, I was going to play the 7 and use the 3 as the key ball. This would be my only concern because, like I said, the cue ball naturally wants to go this way anyway. So if I would have slow rolled it down to here, to be able to control the cue ball to get position from the 4 to the 3, I would have to say that's a little difficult. It's certainly possible. I just think it's more difficult than the option that I chose. Though my option that I chose wasn't all that great either because I almost scratched. I actually thought I was going to do this to where I can avoid the scratch, but I guess that angle wasn't there either, which is why I ended up drawing it over here and spinning it over here. And I do believe my thought process was to get somewhere right here to where I can choose between the 2. I got a little fortunate and just happened to avoid the scratch. I think this would be my only concern with playing from the 7 to the 4 is going from the 4 to the 3. I think that just would be a little difficult. All right, let's see how this break goes for me. Not a very good pop break, but I am holding the cue ball in the middle of the table. It just went off to the left, and it happened to come back towards the middle of the table. I saw the 3 ball fall. Is that all that fell? Looks like it did. So we look at solids. 1 ball's tied up next to the 15 ball. This 4 ball is not tied up. It actually goes in either corner. It goes to this corner better. In order to go to this corner, my cue ball has to be like right here, so that way I know that I don't hit the 10 ball. So really my concern is the 1 ball. And if I remember correctly, at this point here, the player on the other table was asking me a question about accidentally moving a ball. I think what had happened on the table that he asked me was his opponent shot and a couple of balls were moving. And I think one of the balls that were moving that wasn't the cue ball came in contact with the player's cue. I think that was the scenario. And he was asking me what happens there. And if I remember the rules correctly, because a ball that was in motion, not the cue ball, because if the cue ball came back and hit his cue, that would be a foul. But since a ball that was in motion accidentally contacts his cue, you don't try to predict where the ball was going to end up. That ball just stays wherever it happens to stay. I do believe that's the correct ruling, because anytime a ball that's in motion comes in contact with something else or something accidentally, and then it just stays where it's at. Now, back to the match here. You heard me say that this was a trouble spot for me, and I'm in position where I'm going to try to solve it. So with this shot here, this is what you see in the thumbnail. I try to play the 7 ball into this pocket here and spin the cue ball over to here and then try to break this up. Solve your problems as quickly as possible. I even get a little lucky and make my opponent's ball, and now this 1 ball is fully accessible to this corner pocket. Right, so what can I do? Well, the 6 ball goes here to the side pocket, so now I just play connect the dots. Because I just roll the 2 ball in, Cue ball automatically comes down here for position on the 6 as long as I hit it with the correct pace, because now I can play the 6 into the side, roll forward for the 1. The 1 leads me to the 4, and the 4 leads me to the 5, and then I just have to make sure that I get position on the 8. Now look what I do before I come and shoot the 1 ball. I look and see what my shot on the 4 ball is going to look like. And you can see here, I'm not really trying to do anything fancy with the cue ball. I think here I just happen to draw back a little bit so that way I can not be anywhere near that 14 ball. And I think this is played with a little bit of top left. I think I'm trying to get the cue ball right around here. Or do I go all the way to the side rail? I go all the way to the side rail. That guarantees me position on the 8. So probably a little bit more left than I indicated. 8 ball in the side pocket. And I'm also able to break and run a rack. And I'm now on the hill. So the benefits of identifying trouble spots, solving them as soon as possible, and then, of course, having good cue ball control so that way you can actually finish the table. So now that I'm on the hill, I try to go for an 8 ball break, but I end up scratching. So thankfully, I didn't make the 8 ball on the break, because in APA, if you make the 8 ball on the break, you win. But if you make the 8 ball on the break and scratch, you lose. Now, in BCA, you can't win or lose off the break. Right? So it doesn't matter. In BCA, if you make the 8 ball on the break, then the breaker has the option to spot the 8 and continue shooting, or just re-break. If you make the 8 ball and scratch, then the opponent has the option to respot the 8 and continue to shoot or end up breaking. But that's not how it works in the APA. All right, now I did at least make a ball or two on the break, didn't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. I made the 14 ball on the break. My opponent likes stripes. So he takes the 13 down, has position on the 12, holds the cue ball for the 9. Uh-oh. And scratches as he tries to get position for the 15 ball. Plange, Kurt, Emil, you're asking what's APA and BCA? These are pool leagues here in the United States. APA stands for American Pool Player Association, and there's my jinx. Let's get rid of this user. APA stands for American Pool Players Association, and BCA stands for Billiard Congress of America. APA is geared more towards your amateur players, which is why the slop is basically allowed in APA, whereas in BCA, you have to call the ball and call what pocket you intend on making it in. All right, so my opponent scratched. I have ball in hand with a rather open table here. So you can see I'm starting with the 5 ball. To go into the side pocket, I can just roll forward, so I can either have position on the 2 or the 5. I'm sorry, the 2 or the 1. So it looks like I'm playing the 1 here with some draw. That's going to get me position on the 2. Let's see. Travis Wilson, do you think for the pop break, have your bridge on the rail? That's what you've been doing, and you choke up on the cue as well. Now, I do have my grip hand choked up on the cue as well, but I just prefer my hand to be on the table, so that way I can create the arc that I have. Now, you can clearly create the arc on by having it on the rail as well, but the cue ball would be closer to the rail. That's certainly an option. but I prefer to have my hand on the table. So let's see here. 4 ball into the corner pocket, draw back for the 6. I've been doing a lot of draw shots on this one here. Here I shouldn't be drawing now. Now I probably should just be rolling forward slightly from the 6 to the 7. And then from the 7, I don't think I'm straight in, so I think I play this with a bit of top spin and probably just a twist of right spin just so I can get the cue ball a little bit closer to the 8. Just like so. And from my opponent's scratch, as long as I make this 8 ball, I can win the rack and take the match 5-2. Success! So I think the last time we got to see me play this opponent, I was able to take him down. I think 5-2 as well. Whereas in the time before that, he beat me. So usually when me and him go at it, it can be pretty much a coin flip. But I think I had the upper hand on this one here. A couple of mistakes that he ended up making, especially like scratching the way that he did. But you saw both of my opponents use the same strategy of taking a purpose foul, hitting my ball, and trying to create some sort of cluster. That's something that you normally don't think about when you know that you have to kick at a ball. You say to yourself, well, if you don't hit the ball, then your opponent's going to have ball in hand. So rather than taking the risk of giving your opponent ball in hand, make the layout of the table more difficult for them to be able to run out. Even though they have ball in hand, they could probably obviously try to deal with whatever situation that you're trying to create them, but at least you're trying to make it just a little bit harder rather than just going for whatever it is that they think that you're going for. So you saw a couple of strategies here that you probably just never thought about before. You saw in the previous match where I was making my opponent's ball, and then you saw both of my opponents purposely hit my ball to try to make the layout a little bit harder for me. All of which is just trying to make sure that you either delay the game, but always try to stay in control of the table. Mainly about all of those safety plays, because a lot of the safety plays that you saw here is what allowed to be able to lead to victories here. You don't always have to try to make a ball every time that you're at the table, especially if you could just be honest with yourself and knowing whether or not if you could just run the table or not. All right, let's see here, because that's pretty much going to do it for today. Does anybody have any questions? Q Tunler, you're saying since you hate slop, APAs, bars, or wherever, what about this for leagues? If you're rated a 6 or higher, no slop. If you're a 5 or maybe a 4, slop is allowed. So anything below a 5 basically, because there's threes and twos in APA 8-ball. Add skill for another handicap for lesser players. I certainly don't have a problem with that. I mean, I play in the BCA as well, where you have to call your ball and call the pocket that it's going in. So what you're proposing, Q Tunler, I certainly don't have a problem with that for higher skill level players. You would just have to convince the APA league to do the same thing, which APA has been around for God knows how long with the rule sets that they've had. Some of the rule sets have changed over the years. I actually don't know what the rules were at the very, very beginning. I just kind of know what they are now. And for example, I think, when it came to marking the pocket for the 8-ball, you used to not be able to use chalk because they don't consider chalk a personal item. But I think they since then have ruled that out, and chalk is actually allowed to be used because sometimes people have their own personal chalk and they'll have it on a chalk holder or something. And so I think they eventually later changed it to where you can use chalk as a marker for the 8-ball. I don't know what other rules might have changed as time has gone by. Eric Almanza, you're asking me, has any of my teams been to Vegas in the past years? Yes. I actually took a team to Las Vegas last year. I had an 8-ball team finally make it. It took 3 years in the making of me training everybody. The only unfortunate part was when we qualified to go to Vegas, COVID happened. And that actually prevented us from going to the city event. And so once everything finally opened back up and we played city, we won the national event, or we won the city event and was able to go to nationals. The problem with that was that 2 years had gone by, which means 2 years of data was collected into the system. The team at which I qualified with was a good roster from low to high. By the time we went to Vegas, after going to cities and stuff, my players had gone up and I was not allowed to play. There was no roster that we could build that allowed me to play at all. So I basically went to Vegas as a coach. That was the only unfortunate part of qualifying. Now, I did play in some of the mini tournaments. I actually won one of the, or not, I didn't quote unquote win it. I split one of the mini 9-ball tournaments with another skill level 9 that was there. So that was a lot of fun. And then of course we got to, gamble and or gamble on the slot machines and stuff, and then went and saw the shows and stuff, but we didn't do as well. We did as well as I thought we should have done for going there for the very first time, and considering I didn't get to play. I think I actually had one of my 4s had to play up against the skill level 6. That was a little bit unfortunate. She did very well against the skill level 6 as far as trying to play toe-to-toe with the skill level 6, but still ended up losing. But then eventually later on in another match, played up against another skill level 4 and just whitewashed them. Right? So since that experience now we've had to change the roster a little bit now, add some new players, some new lower skill level players, which is the genius of the APA, right? To where, your team, if your team stays together for too long, at some point in time, the team has to split up because skill levels just get so high to where you just can't create rosters. And that's pretty much where we're at. We're trying to rebuild another team that we can hopefully take to Vegas. Just gonna have to wait and see. Pixie, you're asking, are good cues expensive? What the heck is a good cue? Right? I know cues, or I've had cues as cheap as, $100, and I've had cues that are expensive into the thousands of dollars. I've done an old video before to where I broke and ran 4 different 9-ball racks with a $20 cue and then my most expensive cue. Right? There's no real good solid answer, and I don't think there's enough statistical data out there to sit there and say that like $1,000 cue makes you a better player. Right? You can certainly take any decent playing cue that's worth like $100, $200. It's probably even less. It just really depends. A lot of it comes down to personal preference. Robert Schaefer, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm in Texas. Jeremy Gould, you're asking me what is my all-time favorite cue? Well, right now it's the one that I shoot with, and that's the Predator Black 4.5. Let me go get it. Be right back. So I can give you an up-close look at it. Now, in my garage, with most of my YouTube videos, I have a Predator tuxedo in there. But when I go out and play in tournaments and leagues, I shoot with this. This is a Predator Black 4.5 cue. I have a video about when I bought this cue and why I bought this cue, because I wanted to try the carbon fiber shaft out for the first time. And since carbon fiber is of a blackish gray kind of style, I wanted to have some sort of black colored cue to go with it. So that's why I switched to this. And then I break with a BK Rush, in case anybody's wondering. But I mean, this is currently my all-time favorite cue. That and my tuxedo cue, because I mean, I like the way my cues look. I mean, that's usually one of the advice I give people when people ask me like, what kind of cue should I buy? How much money should I spend? My answer is always going to be the one that you can afford, right? Because cues are just personal preference, right? Because you can buy a certain cue, but you might like a certain tip to be on the cue. You might like your cue to be a certain weight. All of that comes down to what you're going to like, not what I'm going to recommend you. So it just really depends. I've shot. I've said this plenty of times where my first starting cue was a fiberglass Steve Miserak, and then eventually upgraded to a wooden Steve Miserak. And then I transitioned eventually to Mucci, shot with Mucci for a couple of years. Then I started shooting with Josses. Then I started shooting with Vikings. Then I went to Sean for a bit. Then I went back to Viking. And then from Viking, I went to Predator. Oh, and I almost forgot, I also had a Woodworth, custom cue called Woodworth. All right, so I've been through my fair shares of cues, and I've currently settled on Predator cues. Now, will I eventually change again? I mean, I don't know. It just really depends. Just really depends. All right. Well, like I said, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. Anybody that's popped in and out of the stream, I can only hope that what I'm able to show you here when I do the play-by-play commentary, and then of course try to do some of the retrospect, that allows you to be able to learn something that you can hopefully apply to your game. Especially when I see some of the mistakes that I made during my match where I could have done something a little bit different. Because not just when I say mistake, not just by missing a shot, right? I could have played different patterns that probably could have led to an out, like one of the racks that I showed you where I think there was a different pattern that probably would have been better for me to play. And so that way, and then of course, if my opponents happen to see any of these matches, then the stuff that we talk about here also benefits them as well. Because I always have to thank every one of my opponents that allow me to share the match that I record of them here on YouTube. I've had some players that don't want to have the match be on YouTube, and usually when that happens, I will say to them, well, what about if I edit you out of the video? And sometimes that's okay, and then sometimes it's just not okay. I mean, I don't have to ask for their permission because we're in a public place. Once I record something, I can do whatever the heck I want with it. But out of respect for people, I do ask. And if they're not okay with being on the internet, then I usually do some sort of private review for myself and my my other APA teammates. So it really just does depend. But like I said, hopefully this stuff here, one, is entertaining with all the stuff that I try to do with the live stream, and then of course hopefully it's educational as well. Jeremy Gould, you're asking me as far as weight goes, what weight do I prefer? I prefer 19 to 19.5. That's pretty much what my Q is for my Predator Black 4.5. It should be 19.5. And my breaking cue is usually somewhere around 18. I like my breaking cues to be light. Anybody want to say bye to Zelda before I cut the stream off? Ugh. Come here. Ugh. All right. You want to say bye to everybody? As all of the bots are finally starting to come in here at the last second. But like I said, I want to thank everybody for being here, especially those that make it here to the end. Hopefully everybody was able to enjoy and learn something from the stream. If this is the first time you've ever seen any of my content as far as this live stream is concerned, perhaps consider subscribing to my channel. This is something that I do quite often whenever I get the matches recorded and I have my opponent's permission. I do try to review them from time to time. If this wasn't really to your liking, then perhaps just check out the content that's on my channel. I do try to do recordings every now and again where I can try to break down some sort of aspect of the game, like kick shots, jump shots, bank shots, how to play combos, basically different techniques of how to play the game that hopefully that you might be struggling with doing, that hopefully allow you to learn and actually achieve whatever it is you're trying to do. If you want to try to draw the ball, follow the ball, learn a different pattern or whatever. And if any of my recorded content actually strikes your fancy, then of course consider subscribing. I just recently posted a video on a new one rail kicking system that I learned from Tony Robles. So be sure to check that out. And like I said, if you like it, then consider subscribing. But at the very least, consider giving this stream a thumbs up. And like I said, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And then just be sure to stay tuned for my next live stream or my next recorded video. Take care, everybody, and have a good night.